Is your police? You're looking at almost 850 to 900,000 personnel immediately. And that is the way to address the problem. Don't let us go and be reinventing the wheel again. The wheel is there. Put a tube or have a tubeless or pull a roll flat. The tire is the tire. Let us go and look at what we have. Make sure it works the way it should work and stop inventing extrajudicial processes to man our security. And that's where the cause of the problem is. And also, we need to go back and look at the welfare of our personnel. The day you solve that, you've solved a lot of the insecurity we have in Nigeria. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next, let me invite Governor Ifeanyi Okowa, standing in for presidential candidate of the People's Democratic Party.
Thank you, Ruben. I think actually that we need a very coordinated intelligence gathering, and we must also find ways of operationalizing it in such a manner that all the security agencies are able to have a shared intelligence and to also work collectively for the collective good of Nigeria. That apparently is not happening at the moment. I'm a governor and I can see it and I see what is going on. So we need to ensure that there's a coordinated arrangement among the security agencies. There is also no doubt that with the level of insecurity, it's not that train incident is just one. There are several incidents across Nigeria taking place at the same time. So obviously we need more boots on the ground. There's no doubt about that. That would definitely require more persons. But the approach to it with the pen, yes, add some more. But in the medium term, we must be looking at devolving the police force such that the states should be able to have their own police and operationalize their own police. It's very important because these people, because they are working within their own environment, are in a better position to have a clearer understanding of their areas and to know exactly what to do at every point in time. Before, people thought of several other things, but as of today, it's obvious that a lot of people are calling for it because just one centralized police force is not able to attend to all the issues that we have. Ordinarily, the military should not be involved in all these things. It's because of the pressures that have called up the military into what we're doing at the moment. But on the long run, I'm not ready to comment on whether Buhari was right or not, because the real issue is that we are not privileged to have the information that he has at the moment. But whether it was necessary to go in and do a kinetic approach, that could definitely cause a collateral damage. There's no doubt about that. But I think that we need to ensure that we're able to prevent these things from happening. But as of today, Nigeria has been overwhelmed. We need more boots on the ground. But we need greater training. We also need to ensure that we provide adequate welfare and make the police force and other agencies, make them more comfortable with a better pay than what they are getting at the moment. This is definitely very important. But we must attack the issues of unemployment, and we must ensure that we educate our children. Until we get this two done, there will be a lot of people on the streets that will be recruited into this very deadly insecurity situation that we find ourselves. I think it's important we address those issues.
Okay, at this point, we'll now go to our panelists. After the panelists, we'll go to the audience, persons in the hall. We'll also be getting feedback from social media. And please, the people in the audience, when the microphone comes to you, make the questions short, simple, straight to the point. No double-barreled, no triple-barreled questions. And you identify yourself and who your question is meant for. At this point, let me invite the panelist who is here with us in this hall, Dr. Jibrin Ibrahim of the Center for Development and Democracy, to ask the candidates his question. Dr. Ibrahim. Dr. Ibrahim.
Thank you for accepting to participate in this town hall. I'm a member of the Center for Democracy and Development, the civil society organization partnering with Arise News. Over the last 8 months, we've been doing extensive research with bandit terrorists in the Northwest. We've been able to trace a lot of their leaders and talk to them. And we've asked them, why are you killing Nigerians, kidnapping Nigerians, engaged in rape and such evil acts? And their response is very interesting. They say we live in a society where you have people in power who use security forces of the nation for their own personal interests, steal and loot the treasury, and are protected because they have power. And therefore, the sets of activities we are engaged in, they tell us, is very similar. The four of you are all people who have spent decades in power in this country. If you meet one of these bandit leaders and he challenges you by telling you there is no difference between us and you, what would you respond?
Okay, let's start with the presidential candidate of the People's Redemption Party, Mr. Kola Abiola, and in that fashion, I'll go from my right to my left.
Thank you, sir. Well, for one, I'm not in that group, for sure. I represent a fresh outlook. I've never been in governance. I've never been in excellency. I've never ran for governor, state chairman, local government council. But that's not so much the point. The point is that we've tried, the leadership has tried over the years, so many recycled and different people every time. They either stay in one party or they join parties. But for the first time, we have a party here in PRP that hasn't been there, hasn't been in a party, neither have I or the vice presidential candidate has been in any party at all, that wants to come and let us try a fresh hand at solving the Nigerian problem. Now, security is an issue, but it all stems from leadership. Sir. And that is why, unfortunately, the Office of the National Security Advisor is the most underutilized office in this country today, especially doing this in this administration. We're not coordinating our security the way it ought to be done. That's one. Two, it's all about the economy at the end of the day. If things work and where youth are employed and there's an opportunity as a hope, I think we will not be in the position in which we are today. Now, the biggest problem we have is what you just said. The way I interpret what you said, sir, is that the common person in Nigeria, the average person in Nigeria, has not seen or felt the present, majority of them haven't felt the present or seen government. They have no faith in that government. And that is why the security has collapsed. Because they believe that the governance and the government are just about the same when it comes to being reckless. Now, the point here I'm making, sir, is that if you have a scenario where in the old days, your information starts from your rural to your local chief, the chief to your to your DPO, and so on and so forth. Now they don't have faith walking up to their chiefs to say, look, there's a stranger in town. They don't believe, they have no faith in the security of this country because they equally don't have faith in the leadership of this country. And for as long as you have that depth of trust, we will never solve that security issue. Before any stranger that comes to town is reported, they know. You can't buy a land in anywhere in the past without having the chief sign off on it to know who you are. All that has broken down now. And that's why, and for fear of reporting someone, and the same police you came to report will come and hunt you, the trust is gone because they believe, because the leadership is also seen as being one and the same with the bandits. So there's a time to change that and try something new.
Please remember the time allotted for the response It's just 3 minutes each. Now your turn. Candidate of the New Nigeria People's Party, Dr.
Thank you very much. I believe that those who are angry, if they see me, they will hardly ask such question, because I am also an angry person. Angry for many obvious reasons. Even though anger should not justify terrorism, criminality, and so on. But I want to tell you that unlike him, I have been in the system for a very long time. I was in the civil service in Kano for 70 years, and for the last 30 years, I have been in the system either in the state or at federal. But I have done what was necessary really to convince them and convince anybody who cares to know what we have done. And it is because of those reasons that some of us are angry to the extent of leaving the PDP and even the APC, because we feel there are better ways of doing things in this country. We believe the system has failed. And that's why we have decided to go to New Nigeria People's Party, the unscratched party in this country. And the security and economy, I'm happy you took these two, but you cannot separate them. And you cannot even separate them with other areas like health, like education, like agriculture, and so on. It is the failure of those areas that resulted in insecurity that we see today, and even the issue of the economy. So I believe that if government is doing the right thing, many people put down their arms. Those who can, for whatever reason, refuse to do that, it is the responsibility of government to ensure that necessary steps are taken within the bracket of the law to ensure that each and every Nigerian lives in peace and goes around doing their legitimate businesses, not minding the religion, not minding the ethnicity, not minding the north and south. Commander-in-chief is commander-in-chief. He must bring the country, even under any condition, within the bracket of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria and, of course, the law. We have done it in Kano. Kano is the most peaceful state now in the north and even in this country. It has to do with what we put in the place in those days. 8 years I was governor of Kano and as chief security officer. Thank you very much.
Next, the candidate of the Labour Party, presidential candidate of the Labour Party, Mr. Peter Obi.
Thank you. Like you, I've been able to go around or off source, met some of those criminals as well. And based on that, I've always said consistently that the more you pull people out of poverty, the more you reduce the criminality that is in the country. And I've always argued that they are doing what they are doing because they could see the poverty in the country. In a country where those people are in government, are richer than entrepreneurs, you manufacture poverty. But if they stop me and ask me, like you said, what will I tell them? I'll tell them, well, as a governor, I served a state for 8 years. And you can go to that state and see not one day did I ever borrow from any financial institution in Nigeria. And that I was not in any position or have never been invited by anybody to question about their missing money. The day I left office, I wasn't owing any contractor that have delivered this project. I wasn't owing any supplier that have delivered. I was not owing pension, gratuity, salary, or anybody. And I can say that in 3 banks in Nigeria, Access Bank, Fidelity Bank, and Diamond Bank, I left in each $50 million, over 10 billion naira for the state. So if they meet me, I'll be able to account for myself and say, I've never borrowed, I've served faithfully, and I left their money. So I'm like them. I'm as angry as they are. That we must be able to chase out those who where they've passed, nobody can account of what they were given. That is what we want to do. Thank you.
Next, Governor Ifeanyi Okowa, standing in for PDP presidential candidate Atiku Abubakar.
Thank you so much. I'm sure that from 1999 to 2007, we knew where the President Obasanjo Atiku Abubakar presidency, where they met Nigeria and where they left it. Much better than where they met it. Because after the military regime, we knew exactly how they were able to re-engineer the economy and also ensure that we even were able to pay back a lot of our debt, and we had debt forgiveness. And a lot of the things that we enjoy today, and even the institutions that ensure accountancy, were actually created in their own time. So that is very important. Secondly, it's important to address the issue of poverty. Yes, the issue of unemployment. It's important to educate our people. It's important that we start to manage our populations. This is very important, and these are things that we need to drive down. But if I were to have the opportunity of sitting down with them, is to let them know that there is hope for Nigeria going into the future. In my state, Delta State used to be very troubled, especially in the oil-producing areas. It was always a place of constant agitation. But we took development to them. We recreated the economy. We grew. We have continued to grow entrepreneurs. If you go into the riverine areas of Delta State today, you see a lot of development. They now have livable towns, and the people are convinced, and they can see hope, and they are partnering with government. And it's important to ensure that we drive governance in this state. I don't want to believe that in the midst of scarcity and infrastructure deficit, that what we need to do is to continue to leave money in governance. I don't think that's the pathway to go, because it's only man when people don't have roads to ply on, when the educational system is still in shambles, when the health sector is in trouble, and you say you have excessive money in this country at this time to continue to save it, when the money is depreciating by the day, that's not the right path to go. The right path is to ensure that you use the money for the development of the people, to create entrepreneurs, to create jobs for the people, to create the enabling environment for industries to grow. This is the right thing to do. So we must be cautious, the kind of language you pass on to Nigerians. When you're talking about developed clients, it's different, because they've gone through all this, so they are going through, they have monies that they can save. But at the moment, in a depreciating situation, you can't continue to save when that money is needed to grow the economy and to make the people have livable conditions. So it's important that we are careful about the narratives that we pass on to Nigerians.
Okay, thank you very much. At this point, we'll go to our Lagos studio, where we have our second panelist. Now joining us is Mr. Bismarck Rewane, CEO and Chairman of Financial Derivatives. Mr. Bismarck Rewane, if you can hear me, would like to bring you in. This segment of the program is devoted strictly to security. Mr. Rewane, please. Hello? Okay, while we're trying to establish...
Yes. Thank you, Ruben. Talking about security. Can you hear me clearly, Ruben?
Okay, we go then straight to the audience before we come back to the panelists. As I said earlier on, the rule for members of the audience, since this is a town hall meeting interactive session, is to please keep your questions simple and direct, and please, no political rhetoric, no double-barreled questions, no triple-barreled questions. Who will go first? We have people in the hall with microphones. You step forward, identify yourself, and then please ask your question and direct it to whoever you want.
Good evening, everybody, distinguished guests. I stand on protocols. My name is Data Makri. I am interested in the security. For those that are interested in becoming president, and for even the APC party in power, other countries use aerostats to identify where our enemies are. Do any of you have any plans on how you're going to go about with the insurgency? The question is open to any of you, as opposed to talking about security problems. I really want to know, how will you go about if you're in the situation that we are in now under APC? I've given an example of aerostats. America uses it, England uses it. It identifies where the criminal is right now. I don't want to go on too long because other people have questions. Thank you.
Okay, you don't have a particular person in mind, Mrs. Amakri. Okay, is there any of the candidates who will volunteer to take that question? You have just 1 minute each. Otherwise, we go from one person to the other. I see Dr. Ravi Kwankwanso would like to take that.
Madam, thank you very much. You see, in security, technology is very critical. And not only that, some of us who are extended family members of the security in this country are very much worried, concerned, and sometimes even ashamed that today, in 2022, security agencies could not identify locations, especially everybody in this country, including the criminals, are using telephones. And these telephones are not too difficult to identify. And these are the problems. In Kano, for example, when I was in government, we constructed roads and, of course, gates leading into the city. And the idea was to put cameras, to put scanners, so that anybody going into that city should be checked and ensure that he or she does not carry anything. And I want to say that even the technology to see us as we are sitting here, you don't have to use complicated communication or whatever system for you to check every square meter, not only in Nigeria, but across the world. So for effective security, we use men, we use IT, we use everything under the sun to secure our indigenous or our people living within the borders of this country. Thank you very much.
The time allotted for this segment is just 1 minute. Mr. Peter Obi, would you like to make a contribution?
Well, as governor, everybody knew what we did in community leadership. We were able to, using what we can call modern communication, using telephone and everything, to provide for every community a vigilante system that was working, provided them with vehicles, communication equipment, linking them to work with police. And you can go and see, we are the only government that had every community was provided with pickup manpower that were paid directly by government. Thank you.
Mr. Kolabiola, candidate of the People's Redemption Party.
Yes, please. I think there's many things we do. We put the cart before the horse. Like I said earlier on, the infrastructure is there. In many cases, you should go to the command headquarters here and go and see that the command room they have there. It's state of the art. But does it function? No. Do they have the manpower that understands how to use it? No. The same thing in just about every security agency we have today. It's all about not just recruiting the right person, but also continue to do and train. It's training, training, training. The machinery, the technology is there to use. In many cases, they are on ground. We just don't utilize them for whatever reasons we have. And that speaks to the kind of leadership we have, not just in our forces, but also at the helm of government. Thank you.
Now, Governor Ifeanyi Okowa, standing in for the presidential candidate of the People's Democratic Party.
There's no doubt that technology is very important and will continue to require it much more than we have at the moment. The security equipments that we have in this country are very few. I'm sure that if you go to the police command now, such instruments and equipment that can identify criminals right to the spot, you probably will just have one or two for the entire nation. That definitely is inadequate. We need to rework the security approach. There's no doubt about that. But as to the use of technology, it's very important, it's very critical, both for operations and also for intelligence gathering. There's no doubt about that. But we also need that the men on the booths must be properly trained, probably well-resourced, well-paid, and committed to their job. And the only way to get committed to their job is to have the required level of conditional service that makes them happy enough to be able to commit themselves to their nation.
Okay, now we'll take more questions from the audience. Who is next? Please step forward, your name and your question, and please make it brief.
Good evening, distinguished gentlemen and ladies. My name is Dr. Joseph Danley Obieche, the National President of Foundation for Correction of Moral Decadence. I have, before I ask my question, I have a goodwill advice, briefly.
No statements.
Oh, okay. The two major qualifications our leaders need is, one, have the fear of God and love for humanity. Quickly to the question. This country that is so highly blessed and bountiful has been totally eradicated, reduced to the mud. There is no doubt about it. Now, my question goes to you, Your Excellency, Dr. Peter Obi. Peter Obi. How are you going to address this issue that is so endemic? As a matter of fact, I'm almost going gaga. It's not normal to be normal in such an abnormal situation no more. How will you address this very endemic issue of Namu Namune, Awalokon, and Mukolu? It's so endemic. We're not moving forward with that. How will you address that issue? I know that you're the kind of man that will rescue, rehabilitate, reunify. And lastly, very importantly, I know you are the kind of person that will reorient the mindset of an African.
No political statements. Quiet in the hall. Quiet in the hall. No clapping, no noise from the hall. Mr. Peter Obi, he directed the question. Well, he said, how will you deal with a particular challenge that he has identified?
Well, I don't know how to start answering. I don't think there was a question, but let me just make this point very clear. Maybe I've had an opportunity now to address one thing. When Jibril asked me a question, I didn't make a comment about what I would answer if I was stopped by criminals. That was your question. Thank you. But let me also put it a point that when I left office by only one measure of development as at that time was Millennium Development Goals. By United Nations and Nigeria federal government, which is party run by party I don't belong, I was number one. I was number one in education. I was number one in health. I won the Bill Gates Prize. Federal government of Nigeria gave me the award for having the best road network in Nigeria. So, but that is aside. So saving money was an addition of excellent performance. You can go and verify. But that notwithstanding.
Quiet in the hall.
What we are here to do today, I've said before, on the comment he made, do not vote for Peter Obi because I'm from the southeast, or because I'm an Igbo man, or because I'm a Christian, or because of any condition, or it's my turn. It's the turn of Nigerian youth and women. It is nobody's turn. I want you to vote for Peter Obi because I'm qualified, because I'm competent, and I know what I can do to put this country out of the brink. That is what I'm contesting on. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Obi, having taken his turn there with the microphone, well, the other candidates will also have their turn. But going forward, please remember, this segment is devoted strictly to security. And the question should fit within the framework. Mr. Kolabiola, your turn.
Yeah. Security or not, I guess I'll answer the question. The fact is this. You have to vote for somebody who actually is a Nigerian and seem to be a Nigerian to give Nigeria the hope it requires. It doesn't matter whether you're North, South, East, Christian, Muslim, you have to be a Nigerian first and foremost. You have a loyalty to country. But more importantly, you have to have loyalty to the generation that's coming behind. The older ones have used up our time. My own set is in the dead zone. And we're here to bridge the difference, to give them an opportunity to have an equal employee Nigeria. That is what you vote for. You vote for the future of Nigeria by voting for PRP. That is what it's all about. It's not about sentiment. It's about who can do this. Who can do this? Not what I have done and haven't done right. And then somebody comes and tells you, oh, no. Those numbers were fake. Or you left this, you didn't leave that. What is it about Nigeria that you want to do for your youth? That's what we're all about here. And please, that's what you vote for. Thank you.
Dr. Rabi Kwankwanso, presidential candidate of the New Nigeria People's Party.
Thank you very much.
1 minute, sir.
Now, yes, you see, I think the gentleman shouldn't worry himself. The constitution of this country has taken care of that. Any presidential candidate that came out of the face of ethnicity, tribe, religion, region, he has lost the election even before the election. The Constitution says
Quiet in the hall.
very clearly
Please remember
that
the
for
rules.
you to win an election, you will have to have the highest number of votes. That is one. Secondly, and more importantly, to address this issue, you have to have 2/3 or 25% in the 2/3 of the, which is 24 states. North cannot win election on its own. South cannot win election on its own. Hausa man, Igbo man, Yoruba man. My belief is that gentleman should not worry himself. The Constitution, which I participated in drafting, which is the 1999 Constitution, has taken care of that. So whether you say Namu, you only belong to one tribe. Namu, you only belong to one region or one religion. So that's the position of the Constitution. So you shouldn't worry. I'm not even worried. Thank you very much.
Please, quiet in the hall. Please, we may declare no clapping, no cheers, no jeers. Please, let's keep this completely dignified. Governor Ifeanyi Okowa, your turn.
The gentleman talked about love for humanity, and I believe that that is very instructive, and I believe that most presidential candidates have that clearly in their mind. On the issue of a pan-Nigerian that we're looking out for, of course, in the People's Democratic Party, that was what we saw from the beginning, and we decided we're not going to zone the presidency, and that any Nigerian who is best fitted should be allowed to emerge at the convention. We had a very credible primary, and our presidential candidate, Atiku Abubakar, did emerge. The important thing is that we must think about Nigeria, continue to unify Nigeria, because that's a pathway to solving the insecurity in this country, and we must think about running a very inclusive government in which every agitation that we see, we must look into it. Those that we need to attend to as a result of political dialogue, we need to do that. Whereas those issues that are involved with criminality, we deal with it by the law. Once you're able to set your goals right and to follow it rightly, I'm sure that we'll be able to get Nigeria right again.
Okay, we take one more question from the hall. Who is going to take the microphone?
Good evening, fellow countrymen and women. My name is Dino Melai. My question this evening is to former governor of Anambra State, Peter Obi. And the question is straightforward. With the uncoordinated security network among the security agencies today, and the lack of proper coordination between the office of the president and the vice president, do you, as presidential candidate of Labour Party, believe that the office of the president and vice president is one and same or not? Thank you.
Okay. Well, it's a town hall meeting. Mr. Peter Obi, I see that you want to take that first. Mr. Peter Obi, candidate of the Labour Party.
The office of the president and the office of the vice president is not the same. They're the commander-in-chief. The button stops at somebody's desk. He can, of course, delegate that power. That is why when the president travels, we talk about transition. The vice president cannot is not commander-in-chief. In terms of coordination, they should work as a family. They should work together. But as president and commander-in-chief, the decision and the buck stops on my desk. I will be responsible to Nigerians. That team, my vice president.
Quiet in the hall, please.
That team, my vice president, will be working very closely with me. That even the constitution have areas where he delegated the vice president to head. It didn't say he's commander-in-chief. So I'll be in charge. And I will not...
Please, no noise from the hall.
But that notwithstanding, everybody in government, like the Governor Kowa has said, has to work as a family. A family doesn't mean that you don't have a head. A family, the father is the head, but it's still a family. And they live together. So we will be a family, but I will be in charge.
Please respect the rules of engagement. No cheers, no clapping, no jeers, please. This is fairly straightforward to understand. Senator Dr. Kwankwanso.
Thank you very much. Now, for the purposes of what happened earlier on here, I believe that there is always supposed to be a synergy between the president, vice president, governor, deputy governor, and so on and so forth. When a gentleman came and asked me whether he should, the representative of Waziri should stay, I said he should stay. Why? Because, you see, we have very limited time now for campaigns. And we have so many invitations from so many organizations for debates, for town hall, for this and that and so on. No candidate can boast of saying, I will attend all of them. And for purposes of respect, I believe there is need for meetings like this to accept representative. And I think that is the position. That's how I see it. It's very important. Whichever group that is having this sort of thing should accept. If somebody is abroad, I think the man sitting here is better than the person who did not come or send any representative. Thank you very much.
Please, quiet in the auditorium. Please, let's respect the rules. Let's respect the rules. Can we have some quiet? Okay, next, Mr. Kola Abiola, presidential candidate of the PRP.
Yes, thank you very much. In the same vein with His Excellency, when all that was going on, I consulted with my vice president also. And our own take on this was that, look, you know what? We're here. It's better to have representation than no representation at all. And let's get this thing going. But more importantly, I think also the organizers must respect their own rules also to avoid this kind of situation. If you put the rules there, enforce them. Many a times you make the rules, you never stick by them, and you change them to suit other parties. I think that is totally wrong. There must be a total level playing field. So let's avoid this.
Please, let's be quiet in the hall.
Let's avoid this going forward. Thank you.
Please, let's be quiet in the hall. Governor Ifeanyi Okowa of the People's Democratic Party.
Hello. There's no doubt that in the presidency is one, but there's no doubt that there is a commander-in-chief. That is not controvertible. But concerning the issue that took place tonight, I read the letter of invitation to my presidential candidate. It did not clearly state that you cannot be represented. Obviously, it was not. I read it. And we also called to confirm whether he could be represented. And we were asked to go ahead that he could be represented because he was overseas. And I think that settles that matter. But the presidency must work as one. And I thank all the participating persons here because they understand that very clearly. And we must understand that there is a need for people to pull along together. If the president can transmit power to the vice president, it means that vice president has that power at some point in time. Thank you.
Please, no clapping, no jeers. Please. Okay, at this point, I have questions from the Nigerian Guild of Editors, who are our partners in presenting this program. And the questions are as follows. I'm going to take all three. One, Kwankwanso, are you taking votes away from the All Progressives Congress so that we can have a political deadlock situation? Is that your plan? Two, Peter Obi, are you also trying to take votes away from the People's Democratic Party in order to create a deadlock in the 2023 presidential election? And in both cases, and this is directed to all the four persons who have been addressing us since we started this program, in both cases, what will each party do? Who would like to go first? I know there are 2 pointed questions. The third one is a general one for all the four persons on stage. You want to respond to that first, Mr. Peter Obi? Okay, Dr. Rabiu Kwankwanso.
Thank you very much. You see, there are so many Nigerians who still don't understand the way we operate. NNPP is not taking votes from either APC or PDP. NNPP is taking votes from both parties, that is one. Secondly, people who are not voting at all, or people who are just to start voting in 2023. I'm happy to say today, based on our understanding, NNPP is the only growing party. The two parties, based on our own analysis, have nothing to tell Nigerians that is new. And this, my brother, who I believe is going to speak next, please hold Southeast very well. You will do a good job for our party and for Nigerians. Thank you very much.
Please, quiet in the hall, quiet in the hall. Please, please remember you are on live television. You are on live television, and people are watching at home. They will see you that you don't respect rules. So when you are told repeatedly to please maintain dignified silence as the candidate speak, well, you are being shown on live television, and people will see you and remind you that you couldn't keep to the rules. Mr. Peter Obi, candidate of the Labour Party.
Well, we're not trying to take away votes from any party. Labour Party is in this election to win and serve Nigeria. Our voters were taking votes away from the traditional parties who have structures, which is structure of incompetence, structure of bad leadership, structure of criminality, looting of Nigeria, and bringing us to a level where we become a failed state. So we are saying to Nigerians, especially the younger ones, come, let's take back Nigeria and take it with people you can trust. Election, what we are selling is trust. Of all these candidates, who will you trust that can manage this country and your resources well?
Okay. Mr. Kola Abiola, presidential candidate of the PRP.
Thank you.
What will you do if these parties take votes one way or the other?
Well,
and who are you taking votes away from?
I'm a non-believer in taking votes. I'm going to, at PRP, we're going to earn our keep. And how do we do that? We're appealing to not vote for party, but vote for your future, vote for your country. That's what we're all about. Now, I believe collectively that this next election will have the highest number of voter turnout in the history of this country. And that's why we have 3 new parties basically going against the 2 established parties. And those established parties, their days are numbered for sure. We don't have to take their votes. They have lost their support base because they have failed woefully. Now, what is going to happen further is that a lot of us are this, that of those same parties. So for once, you have a fresh option to pick from. And that is what I expect the Nigerian youth and the Nigerian public to vote for. And that is PRP. Thank you.
Well, your turn, Governor Ifeanyi Okowa.
Thank you so much. I'm aware that the PDP is strong in all the 6 geopolitical zones, very strong, and strong in all states. That is a statement of fact, and we are busy campaigning to Nigerians based on our manifesto and the credibility of the persons who are on the ticket of the party. Secondly, as of the last time I checked, in 2019, I'm sure, Peter Obi was vice presidential candidate to Atiku Abubakar. He said he paid a lot of glowing tributes to Atiku Abubakar. And as of the last time I checked, up to May 24th, 2022, he was still an aspirant under the PDP. So he cannot claim to be strange to the PDP or strange to the past. It is wrong to present that kind of situation to Nigerians. I think it's important that we begin to address issues the way they were. As for my brother, Dr. Rabiu Kwakwanso, I thank you for your comments. But at the last time that I checked, apart from little issues that we're having in Kano, you are still in the PDP and a leader of the PDP. And you have been part of the PDP. Are you now telling Nigerians that you contributed to the destruction that you claim is happening in this nation? Too many good things came in from the PDP. 1999 to 2007. Let's take note of that. It's important that we educate Nigerians.
Thank you. Well, now, before we move on to the next segment of the program, I would like to go back to our panelist. You recall that earlier on, I had asked him to ask his second question. And now he's back in the hall. Dr. Jibrin Ibrahim of the Center for Development and Democracy. Dr. Ibrahim, the microphone is yours.
Thank you very much, Ruben. I've listened to your responses on security, and some of you have emphasized the inadequate numbers in terms of our security forces. And you are proposing to raise the numbers, double, triple, quadruple. Is that good enough? I'm raising this question because the last I heard from the chairman of the National Peace Commission, General Abdul Salam, there are at least 6 million arms in the hands of young Nigerians. So if it's a question of numbers, all your propositions will not meet that number. What they suggest is that any solution to the security dynamics that we are in must go beyond the question of numbers. What do you propose that goes beyond numbers?
Okay, who wants to take it first? I see Mr. Akola Abiola of the PRP taking the microphone. Please go ahead.
Thank you, sir. I think you hit the nail on the head, sir. Like I said earlier on, it's about the security architecture of Nigeria. Like I said earlier on, that architecture has never been utilized to date. What we have done is to build outside of that to deal with our security situation. What I'm saying what we say in PRB is to go back to that original setup and make it work. Do not duplicate, make it work. Like I said earlier on, we have a National Security Council that hasn't sat since 1999, not once. And that body is made up of 8 people who are supposed to govern dispassionately our security in this country, including the procurements. Now, what we've had is a situation where each party goes out and does its own. One party decides to corner Mr. President and show him what he wants to hear and what he wants to listen to. Many a times you see Mr. President call his service chiefs to come and give him the brief. Are they going to tell him that what they are doing hasn't been working or what? What we are proposing here is to look at that structure, make it do what it should do, number one. Number two, what we are proposing, sir, is to take our units, bring them under one umbrella. We have a National Security Advisor's Office that is totally underutilized today. That is a party to that National Security Council that has never ever done much but to work in isolation. You cannot work security in isolation. 8 heads are better than one. And what we are saying is that let them come together, coordinate that as the Office of National Security to make that difference. And then when you take all these units, all these paramilitary units and all these extra structures outside of the architecture, bring them under the same umbrella, you will get at least 850 to 900 standing, already trained security personnel in the very shortest time. Now, all we have to do is equip them properly and provide their welfare and take care and shut down the corruption going on in the system today. The corruption going on in the system is a big problem. And it can continue that way because the council, the National Security Council itself, hasn't started to do what it should be doing. We will go back to that. We will cut out all that fat, all the procurements and all that under that umbrella and let that council do what it should do. It's in the Constitution of Nigeria. It should be utilized because it's in that Constitution. Now, if you take that 800 and put them to training, give them get their welfare taken care of, equip them in the shortest possible time, you will solve this problem and add the technology to it. And make that technology serve. If you have a 2 million standing army that is not well equipped or trained, and don't have the equipment or the technology to make it work, it's a failure. If you have a state police that are going to replicate exactly what you have in the center in 36 states, it's a failure. Use what is here in the immediate and let us get our security situation solved. Go back to local government intelligence gathering. I served in Zaria. I went with the emir then on his emirate tour, and I saw how governance at that level was done. We need to bring those things back to give security and confidence to the people. Thank you.
Okay, the time allotted for this segment, because the question came from our panelists, is 3 minutes. Timekeeper, please note. Next, let me invite Dr. Rabi Kwangwaso.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you, Ruben. You see, the answer is replicate what we have done in Kano and what we have done in the Ministry of Defense. What I said earlier on had to do with the Ministry of Defense. To us, security is not just the issue of police, SSS, army, and so on, or guns and bombs. Security means a package, complete package. Education security, food security, the economy itself, health security, and so on, even infrastructure, and so on and so forth. Unless you do that, you'll continue to have problem. I remember what we have done in Kano. In the entire state, during my last term, there was no child of primary age that did not get a place in primary school. There was no child of secondary school age who passed the exam and could not go up to the secondary and the tertiary institution itself. Provide for agriculture, provide for infrastructure, bring the people together, unite them. We had so many programs and projects to the extent that everybody was busy and everybody is happy. We were able to bring synergy between the military, the police, the SSS, the civil defense, and so on and so forth. They are working together, and we are still working together in Kano. That foundation today is working in Kano State. And that is why today I am happy to say, despite all the weaknesses of administration that we have today in Kano, security is still good. That area, nobody can take it away. And I remember when I was Minister of Defense, I was in charge, I was the chairman, the national chairman of collecting all these small arms, as we call them. We were collecting them. That time, security was really sound. Now we hear even from governors. Governors are saying everybody should go and arm himself because they realize they have failed. So under that failure, what they do is to create another failure. If all of Nigerians are taking arms, then it becomes an even more serious crisis. I think government must think about that. I believe this is the time the Commander-in-Chief should take charge, even between now and 29th of May, when he is going and the party is also going out of the villa. So I believe something got to be done now, and that is when we want something to be done. And I believe with that, we'll have no problem in this country. I believe Nigerians are good people, both south, north and south, Christian and so on. And that is why you find so many things. Negatives are happening in the country, but people are still moving, are still praying that one day we will get a good and strong leadership that will bring peace and stability and unity among all Nigerians. Thank you.
Next, Mr. Peter Obi, candidate of the Labour Party.
Mr. Jibril, what is weird is that you have 6 million people with guns outside and you have less than that. That supports the need, one, for a complete review of your security architecture, starting with increasing the personnel. Police, to the best of my knowledge, is 320,000. For a country of 200 million, it's unacceptable. If you compare with Egypt, that's 100, they are 1 million. So let's increase that to at least 1 million. And then I support the issue of local government, state, 3-level policing. Thereafter, the most important thing to stop and reduce that criminality is to start pulling those people out of poverty. The more you pull people out of poverty, the more you reduce criminality. There's a lot you can have today all over Nigeria. You have 35% unemployment. With your youth, who are in their productive age, we have 60% youth unemployment. Youth unemployment. You can't have that and you have crisis. That's where the guns are domiciled. So you replace that with jobs. Replace it with employment. Replace it with entrepreneurship. You invest in your micro, small businesses where these youths are domiciled by supporting them, pulling them out of poverty. I've advocated that the goal of Nigeria in terms of physical access is your cultivated land in the north. We can't have that huge land, and we have the level of poverty that we experience in the north. And I've given examples with so many countries of the world where things have worked differently. Niger State have 8 local governments, or about 7 or 8 local governments that is occupied by bandits. And they are living on 76.3 thousand square kilometers of land. It's unacceptable. Arable land that is fertile. When Netherlands, if you minus water, it's 33,000. And if you go there, their last year export of food was over 100 billion euros, which as at that time was about $120 billion. If Niger State can do just 2% of that, for the land space they have, 2.5 times their land, they will earn about $2.4 billion. Even at 650, let's leave 800 today, it's about 1.5 trillion. Imagine what Niger State will be. Those kids, those local governments will not be taken over by bandits. Fact checkers, I hope you're checking.
Quiet in the hall. Now, Governor Ifeanyi Okowa standing in for PDP presidential candidate Atiku Abubakar.
Yes, on this issue, I do agree with Dr. Rabiu Kakwanso and Peter B that there's a need to resource our youths and our women, not just youths alone, and our women. There's a need to tackle education. There's the need for skill acquisition programs. There's a need for entrepreneurship programs to get people out of poverty and to create employment, because government cannot provide all the resource. There's a need for a private sector-led economy, because you have to take people out so that those going into criminality will be less. But the issue is that he's talked about so many arms. So how are the arms coming in? So through intelligence, we need to find out how the arms are coming in, our porous borders through the seas, and find ways to put in stop to further arms coming into the country. It's important. Those arms that are already in the country, through intelligence and technology, and also community intelligence, not only just what you have from the federal state levels. We should be able to get adequate information that enables us to start to mop up arms. And when it is necessary, like it was done in the Niger Delta, if there's a need to cause people to surrender their arms and to find a pathway to recreating their lives, it was done during the Yar'Adua's regime, then we have to toe that path to be able to ensure that those youths that are into criminal activities are retrained. But that requires a lot of training, because training of the mind and training of the hands, that is quite important.
Okay, thank you very much. Candidate of the People's Redemption Party, candidate of the New Nigeria People's Party, candidate of the Labour Party, and Governor Ifeanyi Okowa standing in for the presidential candidate of the People's Democratic Party. At the beginning of this segment, I made it clear that our digital partners for this program come from Premium Times newspaper. And they have a four-man team on the ground, and they've been following some of the claims. And now it is their turn to make their observations, to point out where there are errors of fact.